Let's talk to Phoebe.
My new zine is Lee Carvello's Staying Putt Challenge. So the pun backfired on me because now I have to keep saying it. It is a sequel to Isolazine, which you have a copy of. So the first issue was about maintaining a routine and basic survival during a pandemic and lifting yourself up and reassuring yourself and just little hope punk things. But the sequel, I wrote it during the second and third waves and I got really angry. Not that I think it's obvious that I'm mad, but it's like it's a bit, yeah, it's a bit more bitter at the people who had a lot of power to do things and didn't do a lot. Not necessarily Australia's situation, but just I think it was after an extended period of time, it's all good, we'll just stick together feelings just kind of leveled into this more dry second issue. It's also a lot more extra. I think I threw myself into any negative feelings I had. I threw myself into working through that in the zine. So the first issue was 28 pages. This one's 40. It just kept going. I got really carried away, and then when you get to a certain point of the layout where you're like, I can't take this out because then we're gonna have a blank page.
Yeah.
And I'm all about filling everything. I don't like wasting paper. So
yeah. And what are some of your favourite zines that you've been reading?
My favourite zines that I've been reading lately, we have the Pandemic Lockdown comics by Miles Davitt. He spent some time with his parents in Victoria I think on the peninsula somewhere, and had to get back to New Zealand when he just had, I think his visa, he had to return and had to go back to work. And New Zealand's quarantine was very similar to ours, and he wrote a comic. I think he wrote like a 5-panel comic for every day that he was in lockdown in the hotel. So 14 of them.
Okay.
And yeah, it's great. It's got him exercising on the roof of the hotel. It's got him making names for all the pigeons. It's just, again, it's one of those strength through routine zines, which I'm finding very reassuring.
Yeah.
That people would find these little, I guess that they're little moments for themselves repeated as a form of meditation, and I think there's power in that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I loved Emily Never's lockdown comics that she did through Patreon as well.
Oh yeah,
they're always a good time. So yeah, those are the two that I really blew me away. I think just in terms of how homemade they were as well. They had the aesthetic of people with limited resources, and they made the most of them.
Are there any of all time zines that are like what you aspire to in your production?
Mm-hmm. I've forcibly made friends with most of the zinesters that I look up to, because I look at people who inspire me, and instantly I think I want them in my orbit, because they make me feel that art is connection. So I love, I'm a big fan of Ella Barraclough, whose t-shirt I'm wearing right now, her lesbian book club. Yeah. So it's actually, this is Bridget Summers' books. So Ella Barraclough does zines. There's other members of the lesbian book club circle that I'm in. It's just a bunch of queer and trans gals coming together and chatting about the books they love, but we're all big zine nerds. And yeah, there's Elise Frost. Bridget Summers. I'll just grab Bridget's zine because I can just see it on my bookshelf. Naturally, I also love Meet Me in the Pit as well. Not just because I was a part of it, but because all my favourite illustrators are in it too.
Is that nominated for a ledger, or was that last year's ledgers?
Yeah, it got bronze, the one that I was in. But I think, yeah, I think issue 1 got silver a couple of years previously. So this is Muir Woods by Bridget Summers. So she walked through a very special pine forest. She's a printmaker by trade, and I think she's doing honors now. And she did some incredible lino prints, 3-tone lino prints of these ancient pines, and also acknowledged the traditional owners of this land in America. I'll just yeah, it's pretty. Yeah, it's in San Francisco, and the Coast Miwok people are on this land. So with all the prints she did, she also handwrote the history of it as well. I feel very lucky to have gotten a copy of these. I think she only made 40, so it's a treasured one. Yeah.
It's such a treasure.
Yeah. I really, really love zines where the lo-fi attitude and a really hardcore art making practice kind of cross over.
Yeah.
When these two practices come over, I feel that I can identify with that zine the most, but also there's identifying with it, and then there's also respecting the amount of work that's gone into it as well. It's important that there's no wall between the artist and their audience, but also that they have fun and work to the best of their ability while they do it. Recently, I think since start of last year, I have been trying to work, identify how it is I want to be a storyteller. I hadn't even considered that aspect of art making as being a storyteller until I learned more about my Maori heritage and coming to understand that artists in Maori culture, like many Indigenous cultures, they were oral storytellers, but they were also visual artists as well. Before they had the written word, their art was a form of storytelling. So it feels like a very special thing that I get to continue to be a storyteller and keep that form of communication alive. And it feels very special that I get to include it in zines. The zine scene in New Zealand is massive. Yeah. It's very big. I imagine that's the case for all little coastal towns in New Zealand, especially. But there's a lot of zine fairs over there, and I thought that might be worth mentioning, that storytelling is a very big part of where I come from, and therefore when we look at what direction we want to take our lives in, especially as artists, I guess it always helps to know where we come from, and mine is a long line of storytellers, so I'm proud to be able to do that.
I think when what sets zines apart from, like, because you can aspire to be a storyteller as like a filmmaker, as a scriptwriter, as everything, and there's like these hierarchies you have to aspire to and then get the funding. But it's nice to have zine making so close to the amount of production that you can do as an individual. Agreed.
I fell in love with zines when I was younger because the wall was the fence was removed, and I felt like the maximum amount of money you were going to spend on getting this piece of art out there was going to be like $100, like, for printing, and equipment, and like that was very alluring to someone who was making like $100 a week at a cafe, and it was really,
like $100.
Yeah. Really, I could be making publish.
I got one book cover gig off a zine fair, and I'm always perplexed as to why, like, publishers don't go headhunting at zine fairs. Like, you've basically got just thousands of pictures going there, and like, you can talk to them about if they're serious about developing this further in your business that makes money off this. I don't know how publishers work. Apparently not that way.
Let's talk to Henry.
How are you doing?
Good, how are you?
Are you in Sydney?
I am, yeah.
Yes. I like when I reached out to zine makers that I've like it was like yesterday was all the ones where like I've met them before at zine fairs, and like they come down for the zine fair and then move back to Brisbane, move back to Tasmania, back in Perth. So it's been nice.
Yeah, it's quite fun when everyone comes along. I actually because in the email your name wasn't familiar to me, so I looked you up.
Oh yeah.
And I've actually purchased from you at the MCA, I believe.
Oh yeah. Hang on. Maybe it got sent up with the Sticky Insititute people.
I'm sure it was the MCA. I bought your Lee Pace Inktober zine.
Nice. Yeah, I think Sticky Insititute bring up like a big suitcase full, and they sell all of our things. But yeah, that Lee Pace scene was a good passion piece. Now his little brother follows me on Instagram. So
really? Oh my god.
That's the net gain of that. And then at a zine fair, one person said that she had a job in America and was just being shown how to make sandwiches, but the boss left in the middle of explaining it, and then Lee Pace comes in and orders a sandwich, and she makes the most embarrassing, worst made sandwich in the world because she doesn't know where anything is and just like humiliates herself. And all the time she was just telling herself, maybe it's just a guy who looks like Lee Pace, and then he pays on card and it is him. And she's just like, why did I have to fail so utterly?
I feel like that's almost a success story. Like, hello, I gave the world's worst sandwich to Lee Pace.
And he liked it. He loved it. That's the power of zine fairs.
Mm-hmm.
So are you going to show a recent zine that you made?
So the one for the swap, I hope this is the right way around, is I made this little one, a pocket guide to vampires.
Oh my goodness.
That was sort of like it's just like the illustration and then like a little sort of fact file or whatever.
I know several people who will be keen to receive this.
Well, that's good. I think like the thing with the swap that was sort of on my mind was that like you sort of want to make something that's a little bit more general interest because you know, people aren't choosing to buy it. Or like another zine that I made that's, I guess, kind of a bit more emblematic of my usual work is this one, which is I love someone who's autistic. It's me. And it's like it's just sort of well, the little subheading is a zine about autism, being autistic, and learning to love my autistic self. And it just goes through like the process of being diagnosed and everything. And yeah, that's really special to me. But as you can imagine, like, I mean, that's a very specific audience that wants that kind of thing.
Yeah, I think that the last person I was talking to was saying that aspect of zine fair that sets it apart from what you see online is it's not curated so much for yourself. So when you're walking around zine fair, you'll see all these other things, and depending on how much money you're dropping at a zine fair, you can get all of these different viewpoints, and
definitely
have a lovely diverse time. But yeah, I think a lot of people, when they're showing their favorite zines, there's been a lot of the medical autobio ones.
I think it's like I don't know, like, I mean, lots of people have sort of spoken about how because it's all self-published or whatever, you get such a huge array of voices that you might not get otherwise. So it can be kind of fun to find something that's quite specific and really sort of has gives you a bit of a connection to the creator.
Yeah, and then you get to like because a lot of, because you know when there's the things that you don't ask of people about their illnesses because it's not always a educational lecture moment, but you'd love to have had that time to hear someone tell from the heart some really specific details that you can then remember for the next time you meet someone. and then go,
Yeah.
oh yeah, no, I've encountered that before.
Definitely. And I mean, I think also like for some people, whether it be some sort of medical experience or condition, or even just like stuff like experiences perhaps with like the LGBT community or things like that, like this sort of thing, it's just of course it's people are working to build an environment where it's easier to talk about these things, but it still feels somewhat taboo, and it can be really nice just to be able to talk about it. Like
Yeah. I love how festive the front cover is of that one.
oh, thank you. Yeah, it's it was good fun to create.
Yeah.
In terms of some of my favorite zines by other people, I sort of have a bit of an array. But I couldn't really pick a favorite one, so I sort of instead picked a collection of different ones. One of them is very similar to my own zine. Actually, it's a little one called Burnt Out, and it's about autistic burnout, and it's just like tips of how to deal with it and
nice.
Someone's experience. And it's, I think, just as a comparative piece, it's nice to have that sort of thing, and it's one of those zines that sort of indicates that there is a dialogue opening up. It never gets any less significant if someone says that it meant a lot to them to read. Like it, it's always such a joy, because I think also, like, at least in my perspective, the more personal zines, like I kind of make them for myself as much as I make them for anyone else.
Yep.
Another one of my favorite zines by a local artist that you might actually know is Shedding by Loretta Ryan. Oh, she's got a Polish surname, Krawczyk. I don't know.
I've never encountered her. What's
She's such a lovely artist. I met her at a zine fair, and she's just really lovely. And this is a cute little zine about a snake shedding its skin, and like what's a good page for, like, sort of reflecting on the body and everything. And it's such a beautiful zine, and I love it because the art is really lovely. It's a lovely story of sort of, I guess, feeling comfortable in your skin and the marvelous things that it can do. But also on a very simplistic level, I just really like snakes. And I have a pet snake who periodically sheds his skin, and it's very cute. Again, a change of pace, because then it's like sort of you get the art showcase zines, you get the sort of story zines that may or may not be metaphorical in some sense. And then I've also got this one by another local artist. I actually got this at the online what zine fair was it? Other Worlds, the online Other Worlds zine fair.
Nice.
Last year. It's the There's No Need to Call Me Sir, Professor. It's a collection of Harry Potter poems.
Oh my goodness.
By Oslo Jemison. They're really lovely. It's sort of like it dips into sort of actual literary criticism of it, but then also sort of steps out and does a bit of criticism about the current status of J.K. Rowling. And sort of reflects on the fact that a lot of people in our sort of general age group are feeling a little bit lost in that. I got another one at last year's festival of the photocopier, actually. That was like it was just the zine was called Harry Potter and the Parade of Shitty Dads, and it was just like a reflection on the father figures in the series. And I don't know, I think it just reminded me that it's like, people are still kind of talking about this series, and that's sort of fun. And that actually inspired me to make one of my own zines that's called Harry Potter and the Shame of Being an Adult Fan in 2020.
Ooh.
and it's like an essay zine about these feelings of shame and how it feels kind of impossible to truly separate art from artist, because although I can say, okay, I'm appreciating the work on its own, I'm not having this association with the author, there's forever this emotional connection that's been made between enjoying the series and thinking,
It's heartening to see so many people doing the commentary zines on it, and then it becoming the community itself, like talking to each other rather than you'll always be referring back to the original source, but like the more that people create their own works around it, the more it becomes its own community thing.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, something that I even talked about my own zine was that for the past many, many years, possibly even 10 years, like I'm just sort of more interested in the fan space anyway, because that's where the series lives on.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's such an interesting phenomenon for because it was something that was so important to a lot of people's upbringing, and you can't help but feel a little bit sentimental. And some people have found it really easy to say, okay, I've got no interest in this series at all anymore and just moved on, but not everyone can do that.
The whole chapter of life. And I remember when the books were being more spaced out, and I think I fell off the canon bandwagon at Order of the Phoenix because I was reading so much fanfic. And then by the time the next book came out, I was like, I'm not on board with these decisions. No.
Or when Cursed Child came out, I was like, this is an insult.
Yeah. I think I read the first chapter and I was like, no. I've read better authors.
Yeah, and it's like, I mean, I heard a lot of people being like, wow, it reads like fan fiction, and it's like, how dare you? It reads like not well thought out, thrown up in about 2-minute fan fiction. Like I've read fan fiction that's worlds better than the original series.
Yeah. It's nice to feel confident that it lives in other people's creative outlets.
Yeah, definitely. And I find it really great, and I hope it bothers J.K. Rowling that so many people are like, well, you know what? I'm deciding that all the characters are trans, so take that. It's just simple joys. And I think also, in where currently we've got so much going on, just in terms of the political landscape, and also obviously the health landscape and things like that, it can be nice to just like sit back and make jokes about Harry Potter.
It's nice. I'm kind of delighted that it's one of the traits that are being put into the What Millennials Are and How to Make Fun of Them by Gen Z, and I'm just like, yes, please bookend us into this. Mock us. It's a terrible situation. Just make it into a cartoon so we can fathom what we've done.
Yeah.
And please present this like utopian future world where somehow you're not that, and maybe we can figure it out.
Yeah, it's
Who knows?
It's the funny state of affairs. And I guess that was the other aspect of my zine, that the idea of the adult fan was a big component, because I mean, I think there is a bit of a running joke about how who imagine being a Harry Potter fan still, and it's like, well, I mean, I can't help it really. Like I can't be like, well, I don't like this anymore. Like
when you're saying about medical zines, and my first zine was one about I had brain surgery when I was 11, and
wow.
I did it in a really cute style, and the most common feedback was people reading it and laughing at the joke bits and then going, I'm so sorry, I'm laughing at this harrowing story. I'm like, no, it's okay. I did it because it's because it was like because I told the story so many times that it became like a really rote pattern, so it was really easy to write it. And then people were like, oh no. oh, this is serious. It's like, yeah, but it's also jokes. It's fine.
Yeah, I guess that brings up a really interesting idea of like once you have lived with something and experienced something or whatever, it can be really nice to just joke about it, even if it's serious. Like a few years back, I had an experience where I experienced a suicide attempt, and it's like that was such a harrowing experience, obviously, but also it's very much in the past.
Yeah.
It's just something that I've gone through, and there are aspects of it that are really funny.
Yeah.
And it's like there are sometimes when you just want to joke about it because like it's in your own experience, and once the initial shock is worn off, it's like, well, that was a ridiculous scenario. And yeah, I think having an outlet to sort of make jokes about that. Granted, I haven't actually made a zine about that yet. I feel like it's,
needs to
I would
a bit more into.
Yeah, and it's also like I have to appreciate the fact that for me, I'm in a position where I can laugh about it, but for other people, that can be like, for lack of a better word, a triggering thing to read, and I would never want to.
I think when you encounter somebody's personal, casual way of talking about it, it makes it more real and less like the spiraling infinite thing that you don't want to think about. And if you can put it into one more kind of reality, you can contextualize it and go, oh, okay, yeah, suicide is a thing and common, and it's likely that people have an experience with either personally or someone they know. So it's weird when you make a zine that is so personal, and then someone wants to talk to you about it at a zine fair and it's very public, but not to the point yourself personally where you can handle that information coming at you and not break down, then that's probably a good time to release the zine because people talk to you about it.
I remember like because at last year's Festival of the Photocopier, that was actually my first zine fair that I ever tabled at. And I debuted the autism zine there, and there is a bit in it where I talk about being having your functioning reduced to the point that like I might only shower once a week or something like that. And I was watching people pick it up and reading it. I'm like, wow, there are a lot of strangers who know that very intimate fact about me.
It is the perils of autobio.
Yeah, exactly. Like I felt like I should be wearing like a badge that's like, I promise I've showered recently.
Just do like the fire danger warnings.
Yeah, exactly. It's such a funny I guess a duality of things where it's like, well, yeah, of course, if I'm obviously ready to share that stuff with the world, but there's I don't know, you always have a sense of what if someone who doesn't get it reads it. But then you remember that like the atmosphere of zine fairs is so wonderful. I think that's it's such a unique space that but in the best possible way. Like I remember the first zine fair that I actually attended, like just as a customer, and I was really worried that it was like, oh, it's going to be full of really cool art people, and I'm just not going to fit in. And it is filled with really cool art people, but they're all really nice.
It's lovely when you encounter that. I think trying to get friends who don't live in a metropolitan area to understand what zines are without being able to take them to a zine fair is like, okay, I'm going to send you 30 zines. And there you go. Zines are a lot of things. But
yeah, it's just whatever you want them to be. I think I never quite get tired of just the wonderful variety of things. Like I mean, I've got zines about people just writing on topics that they're really passionate about, as in like here is this plant or this type of plants that I'm really into, and I'm going to talk about them all. And then of course you've got sort of educational ones about someone's own experience, then you've got the more expressive ones about someone's own experience, and like it's just it's incredible. People are so creative.
I think zine making is a way to be really articulate in your own way, because it's not just visual art or text or collage or anything that you can make into a visual medium, and then it's a nice way to have a conversation about personal things on your own terms.
Yeah, and I think also on a very pragmatic level, like at least for me, it's a really good way to start a project and have a very definitive end to the project. Like I'm like, here's my idea for a zine. I am going to follow through and complete the zine. And I think like for me personally, that's a really good way to make me stay productive and also feel productive.
Yep.
That at the end, I've got a cool little thing in front of me that's like stapled and bound, and I'm like, well, that was a nice little like concise thing that I can now hold.
Yep.
Let's talk to Billiam.
I'm going pretty good,
Yeah?
just chilling.
You
Yeah,
excited
how
for
you
the festival?
Yeah, really excited. I'm glad I can finally be a bit like, I think the decision to sort of start my own zine was pretty heavily based on going to it last year. So I'm really excited to be have the opportunity to, actually participate in stuff.
Yeah. Was last year your first zine fair?
Yes.
Nice.
Yeah.
I like talking to all the zine makers today, and it's like just trying to convey what zines are about, and then once you've been to a zine fair, it's like, oh, now I get it.
Yeah,
Yeah, okay. Because you can be handed like a handful of zines and go, I'm not really into any of these ones, and then you see thousands of zines.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's just that array of stuff that you're able to read and all that.
Yeah. So did you manage to? Do you have your new zine to share with us?
Yep. It's this one. So my zine's called Magnetic Visions. It's a music-based sort of interview zine where I interview various Australian and non-Australian musicians and record label owners and such. This issue came out a couple of weeks ago. 40 pages of music-based stuff.
What pages?
And all that. Yeah. I don't know. I always like long zines, so I try to make mine as big as possible.
That's lovely. Oh my goodness. Do you do music journalism or anything officially?
No, I just do it for fun.
Hey.
I think it was an option, but I think the stuff I would have learned in university is tantamount to what I'm already doing. So, might as well just continue that.
It's always, whenever you do a uni course and then realize, oh, I could just be making a zine about this like every month. And
exactly.
Like,
yeah.
Do you have any of your favorite zines?
Yeah, so I just got a few out. This is issue 16 of Bizarrism. It's probably the issue I've read the most of this zine. I try to pick them up whenever I can, but I just really love this zine. Yeah, I'm not sure if it is still continuing. I just see them every once in a while in Sticky and I buy them whenever, but just really good sort of interesting stories, very well written with a lot of great information. I also just picked a random copy of Negative Guest List, which is an old Brisbane fanzine from around 2012 done by Brendan Ainsley, who passed away around 2015. It's just fantastic.
Yeah.
It's sort of what I'm doing, music-based journalism, and it's a great insight to the scene at the time, which is something I really like.
Yeah.
I've also got this one. This is Radiation, which is a zine that was put together by a bunch of female musicians in the Melbourne punk scene interviewing each other, and it's absolutely fantastic. There's a lot of great insights into, doing music as a female or non-male person and, the struggles of that and, just what they find interesting about music, and I really like that.
It's nice to have clear documentation of like an era.
Yeah, exactly. It's fantastic that people are willing to do that. I've also got a copy of this British fanzine called Headaches. It's based around, I'm not sure if this is entirely correct, but Bristol, and it's just done by one dude, and he's one of the most passionate people I've ever met about music. He just has such a love for music, and this zine just shows it. I found out about so many artists through it. It's fantastic. And I've got an older one. This is probably the one I had to look for the hardest. It's an issue of M4, which was a 90s Australian zine, and I was looking for it for so long because there's an interview with an artist called the Scroungers, who I'd been trying to find out anything about for 3 years or so, and I knew they were in this zine. I finally found a copy, and I was overjoyed. And it's a fantastic zine as well. It's got a lot of great insight into. How did I find this?
Yeah.
I'm not sure if you know Christina Papp. She used to do Stitches in My Head and While We're Young, We're Invincible. She had a bunch of zines that she was going to get rid of, and I just sort of went through them, and that was how I finally found this.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had no
So I'm
idea
very proud to
how
own
you
that one.
even track down like something.
Yeah, zines are really hard to track down.
Yeah.
Like, there's no documentation of it really online for a lot of them. So it's a bit difficult at times.
Yeah, I know because State Library has their collection, but I'm not sure when that started or if that's just since Sticky came around.
Yeah, I looked through the State Library. I looked through like a bunch of archives of things just to see if any of them actually had it, and none of them did it. Like I found out about it through like another zine I'd found. I completely blanked on the name, but it was done by the people who did Home I think it's Home Meat Records in the 90s in Australia. Like they had a big list of zines that had come out. This is one of them, and it mentioned there was a Scroungers interview, and I was obsessively trying to find it since then because, yeah, I love that band.
So have you got more in your favorites stack?
Yeah, tons. I could go and grab more. Like it was.
Absolutely.
I'll move the camera across my messy room. I'll get a new one that I was a massive fan of. This is someone in Canada, Celluloid Lunch. It's a record label / zine thing. It's pretty close to a book. It's 140 pages, and the interviews in here are fantastic. They've got great interviews with Craig and Claude Bell, who did sort of Dead Moon and all the photography work in the 80s and 90s, like interviews with the Urinals, Mark Bell, Smarts, and it's just fantastic. I got some copies in for Distro the other day, and I was really a fan of this. This is another one I was trying to track down for a long time, Woozy, which was, I just heard a lot about. It's one of the few handwritten zines I've ever seen, because I guess this is at a time when print was just like word processing was so much more expensive than just writing everything out. So it's got all these interviews with like Sonic Youth and Spiderbait, all handwritten, and it's incredible. Like I can't even imagine the work that would have to go into something like that, to hand write out everything. I can barely type everything. This is another one of my first zines, Lulu's, which are a record store in Melbourne. They put together this zine of a bunch of their flyers, because I've actually got one right here. Every month they do a newsletter / flyer that's got a calendar in it. And this is a compilation of all the words and like reviews and interviews that have been done through that. And it's presented just like really beautifully, and I absolutely love it. I'll try and find one more so I don't hold you up too much.
That's okay.
This is another one, Counterinsurgency. This is a zine from South Africa in the 90s, and I'm absolutely obsessed with anything from that place and that time, just because of how small and compact it was and how unique it was, because this sort of stuff is just insanely underdocumented. Like if I ever have the time to write a book, I'll probably write it on something like this, just because of how sort of obscure and unknown it seems to be with a lot of people, I love that sort of thing.
Does that mean that whenever you find people within that period and place, that they all seem to refer to each other?
Yeah, exactly. It was a very connected scene. A lot of them ended up moving to Australia because a band called Surf or Die, their main member moved to Australia, and people just sort of followed him. Yeah. And that's sort of how a lot of this stuff is somewhat accessible here. You occasionally find someone who's willing to send a scan or willing to sell an old copy of something, or just like send me just like a rip of one of their old records, So that's sort of how that's known here. But yeah. Good.
I love that lineage, that history.
Yeah, it's really interesting. And again, I kind of want someone to do it for me instead of me having to do it, because I'm already trying to do a million different other things. But I'd love if someone would actually, do a proper book on this. So if anyone here is watching
whenever you make a zine, it's always like at the crossroads of like, I wish this was made. Oh no, I have.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's that thing of, oh, God, now I have to do it. Like if no one's gonna do it, then I will.
Yeah,
like that's how it feels sometimes.
I think zine fairs are full of that, but
yeah, I'm sure like every single person at the zine fair, it's been something that if someone else would have done it, they probably wouldn't have done it.
Yeah.
But I guess that drive pushes people to make more and all of that sort of thing.
Yeah.
You know?
I think there was one zine that I did, and then I found out someone was writing a book about it, and then they like won some awards that year. And I'm like, I'm so glad that at the time when I was researching it, you were also researching it, but even deeper and better. It took the weight off my shoulders that someone else did it.
Exactly. It's been documented in some form.
Yes.
Which is, yeah. You know, I guess that's a big advantage of zines, is that it's a documentation of either one person or one scene or one idea at one particular time that can largely live on in a way.
Yeah. And then someone can track down your work in 20 years.
If someone ever does that, if you're researching a book on me, stop. My life isn't that interesting, okay?
But they need to know about that one part of South Africa in that one time.
Well, then they can... Fine, just take them off me, okay? If you are dedicated enough to do a book, do it, okay?
I can't think of any other questions. It's been so comprehensive. Are there any other zines that you've made, or has it been straight into magnetics?
Magnetic Visions is... I've used the name for a few things. I'm going to see if I can find it right now, but I found it. So this is the first thing I ever did. It was just like a sort of A4 sheet of paper folded art zine, but I also called it Magnetic Visions.
Yeah.
So I've just sort of kept the title going.
Oh yeah.
I've helped with a lot of zines. I've helped create masters and distributing them or printing them in Australia, but if I'm making something in zine format, it'll most likely have the name Magnetic Visions in it.
Nice.
I still think there should be more music zines, even though it probably makes more sense to do it online. I still think there's a lot more creative freedom and, you know, even financial incentive to keep doing it, because it's not cheap to run a website and oftentimes you're making nothing from it. So having a zine to somewhat monetize that and keep it going is great. But you know, I always love to see art zines. I always love to see zines documenting fandoms or groups that I know nothing about, even if I'm not interested in the actual thing. Just like knowledge about other scenes and microcosms of the world, I always love to read about. So if anyone can do that or anyone knows that, let me know and I'm happy to read or purchase.
Let's talk to Krys.
Anything to do with zines, so big fan of zines, and seeing that there are some festivals actually going on is good, because this whole year has been kind of weird. I know in the States, we don't have any zine fairs for the foreseeable future that aren't virtual. So it is what it is, I guess. So what do you want to talk about?
Do you have any favorite zines on hand?
I do.
Ah!
I have a little short stack here, and this is a very few out of the numerous amount of zines between collecting for so many years, making, trading, having things sent in for our YouTube channel. These are just a few that I've had that I pulled off the top of the stack. So first we have Andrew Neil's Meeting Comics.
Oh.
A great little comic. I do love a lot of comic zines, don't get me wrong. I love comic zines. And this one's fun because it's a great little comic that he started a couple years ago. And it's a great story. And I think he's in number 13 or 14 now.
Nice.
And I love this. I love the format because I love square format.
Yeah.
It's just one of my favorites.
Nice.
And he's done a lot with this. This is one of my faves. I have an urban legend, done Laura, another square.
Oh,
and this is a friend of ours, and there's a whole urban legend about a Boy Scout and a mysterious trip in the woods, which urban legends are definitely a great thing.
Yeah.
It's beautifully illustrated, all in ink by hand, so love that. Let's see. I have contributed with my partner David, my husband. We have contributed to Milk and Honey before, but our friend is in this one, and our friends actually put this book together. It's called Milk. It's a comic anthology, and again, I'm really into comics.
Yeah.
So my friend Steven, who I've partnered with on many tables and zine fairs, all about food and how he didn't eat pizza for so long.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of really good comics in here. This one is just kind of and it's based out of North Carolina, which is where we're from.
Yeah.
So it's really important, you know, like be able to see different comics all in one thing together. And they do such a good job editing and taking care of it and having interviews with other people who make zines and whatnot. But they also go to a lot of zine fairs. Well, they did.
Yeah.
Before all this pandemic happened.
Yeah.
And then I don't know if anybody else out there in zine land knows of Liz Mason. But Liz Mason is really awesome and is the head zinester in chief at Quimby's Books in Chicago.
Okay.
And also, she creates zines.
Oh.
This one's really good. It's definitely closer to being a perzine. A lot of the short stories and personal accounts and cute little pictures of kittens.
Yeah.
But Liz is amazing, and Quimby's bookstore in the U.S. has been one of the top zine stores to buy zines, which has been really great. You can actually like hit her up online and say, I have this much to spend. I like these subjects. Send me a random box for $25 American of zines. And I've gotten one. It's great. Complete blind box. I had no idea what I was getting. And my favorite one, I picked this one up. One of our big zine fairs in the States is SPX, Small Press Expo. And there's a lot of international people there too. The Ignatz Awards are based for SPX, and it's in Bethesda, Maryland. And I picked this one up a few years ago, and I'm a sucker for weird zines that have something going on with it. Okay. So this one has little cutouts.
Oh.
And it also, hold on, I'm gonna see if I can do this on screen.
Oh, boy.
He cuts all this stuff out.
Yeah.
It's so intricate, and he draws everything. And it opens up even further with like different doors and whatnot. And it's so
goodness.
Cool. I know, like I can't even figure out how he does it.
Yeah.
Nor would I ever be able to have the patience to do it. So this is one of my favorites, just because I mean, it's another comic zine.
Yeah.
But just the little peekaboo doors.
Yeah.
Everything is hand drawn, like the whole thing, and he puts these together, and I'm like, dude, this is art. And that's A.T. Pratt, but he I think he's in Maryland if I'm not mistaken, but he's really cool too.
Okay.
The past year, I think that it's been like, you know, most of the time when you do a lot of zine fairs, you are, you know, creating, okay, how many zines can I get before this show? And with, especially in the States right now, I'm still not really onto the whole online zine fair thing. To me, it's a little, I can't put my focus on it somehow. It's just me. It really is me. So I haven't I've had to break myself away from, I'm making a zine for the zine fair. I'm making these zines for the zine fair and I'm making the zine because I'm trying to say something, which is what we started out doing this for. Yeah. So it's going to get my mindset back to, I just like making zines.
Yeah. I love people talking about like the making of the zine is just a completely different satisfaction bucket to people receiving the zine. It's just like, make it, create it, it's done, I can hold it, finished.
I've been getting involved with doing a lot of like little trades here and there, and that's been a lot more fun because somebody else sends you their hard work and you get to see what they worked on, and you send them a little packet of zines, and it's like, ooh, cool. I get to see what they're working on, and it's so cool because there's so much interesting stuff. Everybody has their own little like pocket of zines that they like. I love comics mostly, and I like cookbook zines, and I like to-dos. I like things to do. Like I want to know how to do this. I have a zine on how to fix a bike, and it's one of my favorite ones because I've used it so many times. But everybody likes to have zines or story zines, or they want like, you know, something about political zines. Everybody has their own little like pocket of their favorite. And I think it's so interesting that we all have the same core interests, but we all have like little branches of it.
Yeah, I think when you're ordering zines off friends, you're getting the same stuff, but then when you have a zine swap or you have a zine fair, you get to see everything.
Yeah, because it goes without saying with your friends that do zines that you're going to swap zines with them, but you saw them making it, so you're like, okay, well, I already know about it. But yeah, something you don't know, it's kind of like the magic is there.
Yeah, it's like their whole existence for a few months is just like, and I can hold it, I can have it,
and I can touch it, and it's mine.
Oh, the magic of zines is everywhere.
It really is.
Yeah,
So it should be like a rainbow. The magic of zines.
I'm excited to see how Festival of the Photocopier even works this year, because they were showing me all their like examples of what other zine fairs have been online and going, and we don't want to do this, and we don't want to do that. And I was like, but what are you going to do? It's like, no, it's just going to be really good. And it's like, okay, I believe you. But I think this like calling people and interviewing them has been the closest to zine.
Oh, it's been a lot of fun to see how like the show has been progressing and how everybody is like coming into line because they're like, I want to see this happen. I want to see this happen. So I mean, it's really exciting, and you know, I'm excited for it. I just even from like a whole like over in the pond kind of like let me watch it from afar because I can't be there.
And then the next zine fair that happens in the world will go, oh yeah, but we could do it better. It's like I run a zine fair every Halloween, and so like I get to have this and then go, okay, now I've got several months to figure it out.
This past year, we were going to have a zine fair that was supposed to happen in September, and our friend was going to have one in June that were going to be like relatively new ones, and everything had gotten canceled. But man, it's like I have a little gnome guy that I created for our little mascot. I'm like,
yeah,
I'm just going to throw him in everything. I don't care.
Yeah,
like half the fun is putting it together and seeing everybody with all their zines come together and like, yes, I want to be in your zine fair, and like, yes.
Have you ever because we have a couple of people in the lead up to zine fair, they'd start posting, they'd practice setting up their table and just like pretending it's zine fair. It's like, but like this or like this. So
and honestly, doing that has helped us so many times at zine fairs know how the table is going to go, because I hate going to a show and just going, I don't know what I'm doing. Usually my partner takes over and he's like, I got this, this is here. And he does all the base setup because he remembers everything.
Yeah.
And then I'm like all doing like the zines are going to go here. And then I'll move them like 5 million times because, you know, but practicing does help. Like knowing and making sure you have a checklist, that helps too.
Yeah.
Because I'm notorious for getting stuff.
Yeah. I like there's one zinester down here who operates under the name Small Zine Volcano, and so their table setup is pour it on, and that's that's the Small Zine Volcano. There's a lot of titles.
Oh, that's awesome.
Done. Set up. You can go check out the other tables now.
Small Zine Volcano.
Yep.
Has it ever erupted?
Oh, actually, yeah, because we had a zine pond, no, zine swamp, because we held it at a meat market last year, and so there was one area that didn't have trestle tables in it, so it was just all the zines spread out. And I had some zines that were from someone else, and like they didn't fit on my table ever, so I was just carrying them around from zine fair to zine fair, and I got to throw them into the zine swamp. So that was great.
Okay, so I had this like weird idea, and I definitely was thinking about doing this just someday with a bunch of other zinesters in the States at like church functions. We have like, it's called a cakewalk.
Yeah.
Where you put like the cakes and you go in the chairs, and whoever's like doesn't have a chair, they get to go and pick a cake. It's this weird like thing where it's like kind of like Duck Duck Goose, but kind of reverse, but with chairs and cakes. But you do it instead of on the seats that have cakes.
Yeah.
You have zines, like little zine packages, and you do little like Duck Duck Goose.
I don't think I'd ever interrogated how a cakewalk works. I just assumed it was like a silent auction.
Yeah, it's kind of this weird thing. Like you have a cake, everybody puts a cake in. They can be part of it if they have a cake, I think.
Mm.
It's been years since I've been to a church and done this. And it's like this whole duck, duck, goose, and whoever doesn't have a chair, and whoever like gets the cake or something, and they pull into the chair, and one more person goes, and it's like an odd amount. It's so weird. I'll have to like look it up because it's an idea, but like a cakewalk, but with zines.
Yeah. That sounds like a winning idea. I wonder if,
I think so.
yeah, because
I think the Google View might be really helpful to find out how a cakewalk really works, because I'm going from like 8-year-old memory. I don't remember.
I like the tweet jokes that go around of US authors really will be like, I got my hongus bongus from Bingle Bongle and expect us to know what it is, and we'll just go along with it.
There are some definite words here that definitely get lost in translation. I'm not gonna lie. I think Americans, we just inherently make up stuff and just assume that everybody, because American arrogance. We just assume everybody knows what we're talking about.
Yeah,
pretty much most of the time.
I like that Australia is like on the cusp of like getting quite American, but it's got like deep simping for the British Empire. So it's just like there's just like a lot of people caring about the BBC, and then culturally being quite American now. So it's this weird limbo at the moment.
It is kind of amusing because I have a few friends that went to Australia for a couple of years for exchange student, and they're like, it's oddly American, but not.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, that's interesting.
Yeah.
I still want to go someday. I still want to go.
Zine Cuisine?
Just the Zine Cuisine, just Krys, Krys.
Nice.
Super simple.
Nice. Thank you so much for your time. Have a good sleep.
Thank you. Have a good one.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Okay.
Let's talk to Bron.
Yes. So the majority of my zines are poetry zines.
Ooh.
I don't know how well you can see that.
I can see that
this one's.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's good.
Yeah. So although I do have a version where this is all nicely coloured, but this is actually one of my poems. Because I used to do a rather plain cover, and everybody was saying, yeah, it looks too similar. So I started off putting a poem in a shape as the front cover.
That's lovely. Is that all done like, did you resize every single word yourself? And
oh no. One of the sites where I get a lot of my graphics from, part of the membership is a word shape creator.
Oh, nice.
So it took ages to put all the individual lines in so that every single line's in there. But no, so all I had to do was say what color I wanted, what font, and it pick the shape, and it did it for me.
That's lovely.
It still takes a while, but I've got a lot of poetry that I've been writing for a very long time, but especially since 2017. I had a breakdown.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden my writer's block of decades just broke. And there was about 600 poems in the draft folders, and about 340 have been completed so far.
Yeah. And
before I get to book stage, I thought zines, get it out there, let people have it. Yep. And 20 pages, well, take out, there's about 16 pages of poems in there, everything from one line to, 2 pages. So, it's a great way to get people to have a taste. Yeah. So, and then I've got short story zines too.
Oh, nice.
Because I'm a multi-genre writer, so it's really good. I mean, you got the tiny little zines that you can put just one little story in.
Yeah.
And it's perfect,
What's this one? The hugging mug?
Yeah, the hugging mug. So that one's for it's for people of all ages, but
Yeah.
particularly aimed at kids. Nice little tiny zines too. They're fun.
Yeah. Do you have any favorite zines with you?
Yeah, I signed up for the swap because I don't actually have many zines.
Okay.
But I have a few, and I love everyone that I've got.
Yep.
So this is what got me into the mini zines. I don't know if you can see this one.
Little Black Riding Hood.
Yeah, so this is an adaptation of Little Red Riding Hood, and it deals with depression. And it's really, really clever. So that one was a gift from Zonky Zoe. Zonky Zoe. So it's just really little sweet little graphics in there, and yeah, it's absolutely beautiful. So, and then this one I managed to pick up at last year's Zine Fest. It's it's food puns. It's really gorgeous. It's just food puns.
Oh.
I mean, that is sweet. And yeah, it's just right up my alley. I love puns. This was the first one I ever received. Somebody asked to do a swap at my first Zine Fest. This one's about, it was actually part of her thesis, exploring the nature of violence against women. And it's just a little short story to go with it. So it's actually set in Melbourne too. So there's that whole familiarity when they talk about Belgrave, because I'm down here. So they mention Belgrave. I'm like, woohoo. But yeah, no, it's just, it comes with trigger warnings because of the nature of it.
Yeah.
But yeah, when she came up to me at the festival, hey, I like your work, let's swap. I'm like, okay, cool. The first scene, cool.
That's lovely.
And the last one to show you is another adaptation of Little Red Riding Hood. So this one's called The Visit.
Yeah.
And it's a modern adaptation, very interesting with how they've worked out about the wolves.
Yeah.
I don't want to say anything, but yeah, no, another one where, because I have my own Little Red Riding Hood version, this one was a swap because they realized we realized we both.
Yeah.
So it's really great. The one story has got so many different adaptations. So I'm going to collect every zine version of Little Red Riding Hood I can.
There are some I can place. I know Emily Never has one that's like it was so big. I think it's A4, and it was all like woodcut, and I think it's got werewolf elements. I think that was the.
Oh, wow!
I think it was very beautiful. I'm always a sucker for like just the transition thing of a girl goes out at night and then starts transforming into the wolf.
Yeah, that's great. That's the thing I like about writing anyway is the adaptations. You know, put 6 of us in a group and we're all going to have our own different version of the story, but the zines, they just add like 3 stories and everybody goes a different presentation.
Yeah,
you know, they're all zines and they're all just different.
Yeah.
And that's what I love about zines.
Yeah, and you've got that thing with folk tales of like the whole point is that for it to be passed along in your own telling.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah, I want to I'm hoping to go back to uni one day and explore the whole importance of for my PhD, the whole importance of folk tales, mythology in every facet of humanity. We've all had our own tales to tell and we pass them down and everybody puts their own little spin on it.
Yeah, I think I got really into because Perrault fairy tales were standard at some point, and just revisiting them and just going, yes, and they do embody a very specific time period of values and a very specific like hierarchy socially and economically. And then if you get like 10 or 20 years out from there in like a different country, neighboring country, all the stories are wildly different.
And I mean, just the fact a lot of them are all about how people that are different to us are scary, or things that are different to us. So it works well with LBGT themes, and so it's really great, and every generation can spin it based on something else. So when I was studying it back in the 90s, I actually studied Little Red Riding Hood for one of my feminist classes. And just looking at how that version was so much warning every girl not to stray from the path, and all about her burgeoning sexuality, and and you're like, a bunch of guys wrote this. That's all right.
Yeah. I like I got really into Angela Carter for a bit, and I didn't read all of her works, but just like her spin on Bluebeard and like Beauty and the Beast was did you ever come across Angela Carter once?
I'm trying to remember, because I've tried to read as much as I can, so sometimes it all blurs together. I'm going to write it down so I can check out, like, Carter.
Angela Carter.
Cool.
I've still got the rest of the book to get through, but like I was so euphorically like, oh, thank you, yes, because it was like the angle of, oh, woman gets taken into a place of burgeoning sexuality, but likes it and has to still negotiate what the ending is out of that, instead of get punished for or receive your commensurate sort of, well, naturally you must die for these decisions. Like, no. maybe other results.
Well, that's why the Bluebeard one is one I've yet to touch. I've touched a few, but Bluebeard, I still haven't worked out just how I want to do it yet. So definitely going to have to check out hers then.
There was I saw a film on Stan, and it's a female French director who did Bluebeard, and I really liked how she did it because it completely sidestepped the sort of child abuse angle, but it did have a very, very young protagonist. It's like as soon as the girl moves into the castle, she finds a cupboard that will be her bedroom, and he's not allowed in because he's too large, and just like,
oh, love it.
And then it just goes into other things, and I'm like, thank you. Oh, I love this. It was still murdery, still grisly, but it didn't have to be gross, and it.
I never did like the whole moral that when we were growing up, where it was this is all about how women shouldn't be nosy. Okay.
I like when it's the fairy tales about like the villain just has one like moral code that isn't necessarily that it's really good. It's just they say they're one rule at the beginning, and then you can transgress everything else, but then it's just like, but I just said I had one thing. It's like, okay, I guess. I'd like to see more of that in zines. I think, whenever I make a zine about it and then someone comes up and says they've made something else in that vibe, and then we all swap together.
I haven't read any of yours yet.
That's all right. I'll have to fish out the one I did about fairy tales, maybe send it to you, because it sounds like it's exactly the thing. And I haven't gone into that research deep dive in a while, but when I did, I just put all my notes in one thing.
Well, with my Little Red Riding Hood, I decided to cross two stories together. So that's why it's The Girl Who Cried Wolf, because I just wanted to blend. I thought these two belong together, and I left the ending because I ran it by my beta readers, and it was either because it was going for a children's book. So it's due to be published in a book. So I had to fit in the guidelines there, but it was like, oh, do we want to punish her for what she's done, or do we want her to get away with it? And everybody was like, oh, no, you got to punish. And in the end, I left it entirely up to the reader. And someone's like, oh, but, and I'm like, hey, it works.
Yeah.
you know, leave it up to the reader's discretion as to what actually happens. And yeah, that way I'm not advocating for the murder of someone that doesn't follow rules.
Yep.
And at the same time, there was one about a princess that she was spoilt rotten, as they were, and her father gave her away to this disguised king. Oh, King Thrushbeard, I think it was. King Thrushbeard. So I decided to retell that one. And at times it is just so not cruel, but pointless cruelty and humiliation that I felt any kid reading this or any adult reading this, they're not going to learn. It's all humiliation and not the fun humiliation. So I'm sitting there trying to keep to the spirit of the story. She has to go through this transformation. She has to go from, you know, spoiled, rotten to a decent human. And I found a way to do it without making the prince the bad guy. I just removed him altogether and made him sick for a while.
Yeah.
And let other people humiliate her. So it was like there's still the humiliation, but the love interest isn't humiliating her into becoming his perfect woman.
Yeah, that sounds good.
That way it was the best of both worlds. You still get, and I mean, someone did say to me it was a bit too sweet, but was sweet either.
Yeah. Well, this is lovely. I feel like I have to send you an email with all my favorite things. Zines.
Yes. Oh, one thing that might excite you. We're gonna have zines on the moon.
Oh.
Yes.
How?
So I'm part of something called Writers on the Moon. And there's Dr. Susan K. Quinn. She's a lovely writer and a friend. She's got a payload going on the Peregrine lunar module.
Okay.
That's happening the launch is in July. It's through hang on. Just 2 seconds. It's through Astrobotic and DHL. So they're going to deliver moon boxes. So in the box, there's this tiny little memory card.
Yeah.
And which actually holds heaps of space. So once she loaded it with all of her stuff, she invited more of us to put ours in. And in my spot, I thought, oh, we got to get zines up there. So we're actually having digitally, there'll be 3 zines, 2 of mine and a Star Trek zine of a friend's going up to be on the moon for all of eternity. Until someone reads it, you know, so zines on the moon.
Oh, that's wonderful. I've never heard of that. That's the possibilities.
Oh, I know. When it was opened up and we could apply for spots, it was like, wow, how do we fill this? And I could have just filled it with everything of myself because it's a time capsule. So, you know, this is who I am, this is what I did, and this is 2021. But I brought some friends' stuff along too. And I thought, no, we've got to have a zine up, at least one zine up there. So, yeah.
Oh, that's lovely. Oh, zines on the moon.
Yeah.
We'd have a zine fair there one year. Give it a few decades. Is there any other zine vibes you'd like to pass on?
Oh, I think we should be definitely getting more and more people involved. I remember, because I've only been involved for a few years and only dabbling at the moment. But I remember when we did zines at school all those years back, and I would like to have people realize that it's fun for everybody, and it gives everybody a chance to have a voice. So that's what I'm trying to sort of promote, get more and more people to realize what they can do.
Let's talk to Beau.
Have my box overflowing because the lid just fully came off and they all just went, okay. I have so many others. One in my wallet that I picked up the other day when I went to drop stuff off at Sticky. There are just lots of like very small zines about greyhounds, and I feel like, okay, this is by Sophie McPike. That explains why this one's about greyhounds. But I see them and I can't help but just go, oh yeah, $1. I love content that is directly about me.
Oh, this is very thorough.
It's very sweet. So I think these are all of her fosters. Oh yeah, because BB's right at the end, and BB was a foster fail. BB is her full-time dog now. I actually have a picture of BB up on the wall, which is that little, I don't know if you can, it might be too small, but there is a picture of BB on the wall because BB has health problems because greyhounds are somehow one of the oldest and yet worst dogs on the planet. These folks, Mon Books, were tabling next to us at Festival of the Photocopier last year. And it was so busy that I didn't really get to, like, apart from a couple of times to go around and say hi to people and buy a few things, I didn't really have a chance to look at a lot of stuff on the Sunday. So I bought a book from them just before they closed up, and it's very sweet. It's like lots of different paper colors, ink colors, just about bags. I've been collecting all of Kat Piggott's Sheena zines for a few years now. Because who doesn't love little punk rock animals? This is the rest of the box. It is packed full. So I have them kind of organized by size. But this is no longer sustainable. I'm going to have to diversify and, I don't know, put them in separate boxes. But I have a bunch from one of my friends a couple of my friends live back in the UK. I have one whole friend in the whole country. But she is a librarian living in Norwich. So she sends me Norwich zines once a year. We do a little swap. So my cachet was a little pathetic because of the pandemic this year, but usually I go to Festival of Photocopy and buy a bunch of shit for her. And then she sends me a bunch at Christmas and we do like a trade-off. Some guy on Twitter was making single page Fast and the Furious scenes.
Oh wow.
Yeah. It's literally just a double-sided like essay about his favorite Fast and Furious movies. But somehow a friend of a friend retweeted it and I was like, oh yeah, I'll have one. Not actually expecting anyone to bother sending anything to Australia, but
that's zines.
That's zines, baby. What else is in here? Oh, this one's real good.
What's that about?
It's by a local artist called Alex Clark, no E. And it's about a little person and a real big person. And the real big person kind of reminds me of Lee Pace, which I find really cool because he's real big. And the little person kind of reminds me of Alex, which I think is really sweet when people kind of put themselves in their work. I just think that's really a lot of me and Nia stuff. I've got a lot of zines about dogs because they're a very easy sell. I've got lots of halazines, so many halazines. Phoebe and Barnabas present the world's most awful sight. Peek inside if you dare.
It's me.
It's you. Dun dun dun. Worm on a zine. Which is a zine about worms. Tiny Cowboys. Fold out, choose your own adventure. 2-color Rizzo. It's very beautiful. I'm really worried about opening it up and then folding it back down the wrong way, but I played with this so much when I first got it. This is Ellie. She does zines of dogs from time to time. I have a little picture of Lizzie.
Yeah.
Which I think is just really important to have. Dogs I love. Really is the easiest way to just sell anything to me.
Yeah. I do like the one that was what was the front cover? It was oh, here's a scene about cats, and then all the middle was dogs sneezing. Like tricked you.
Oh, Bexley Felix.
Yes.
The classic. Is it in here? That Merlin zine she made that was just like a brick. Bridget Melville. Very cute.
Oh.
Oh, it's like, again, the easiest way to get me to buy anything is just put a little puppy on it. I have a lot of Laura Bibby's poems. Pretty much every time she puts out a new chapbook, I pick one up. It's very lovely. Lots of Clear Chiller, although I feel like I'm a few behind with her now. But they're very beautiful, very sad. Like these little like slice of life books about being miserable that I really relate to. Oh yeah, so many books about Leica.
Yep.
Another dog book.
Oh.
It's by Zoe. It's literally just a dog biscuit recipe. I think I got this from Home Cooked actually a few years ago, but the guy who was stupid. That is by a 9-year-old named Alex. So, good company. I only buy zines that have dogs in or by people named Alex. He got out of hospital and into a plane, but he jumped out for no reason. Flats onto the beach and turns into a puddle. This is a really old, like plastic knife number 2.
Oh.
Yeah.
Early.
Sort of a vintage there. Yeah, I think I must have. When is this from?
I remember getting them and treating them like illustration prompts.
I think this must have been pretty early on when I moved to Melbourne. And I was always really scared to go on a sticky because everyone looked so cool, and I was such a I was a real scaredy nerd, and I'd always loved zines as a teenager. And I thought it was, like really cool because I'd grown up being punk rock, and I thought it was all really rad. And then I enter a room full of actual zinesters and people who have completed books, which was the big one that I couldn't get over the hump with. So I'd just be like, I'm working on some stuff.
I'm just imagining it with your like masters, but they're just like crinkled and sweaty, moist.
Stop crying.
Jammed into your pocket. Just paper mache it down onto the photocopier glass.
Yeah. It feels like that. I think this might be another one from overseas, but it's a horror, very cute little format.
Oh, is that to size?
Probably actually a little bit smaller, maybe, but like pretty close. And it's very much very nice cut and paste. Ooh, it's really freaking the camera out.
Yeah, that one's trimmed to effort. That's not an A variant size.
That's a bit cute. I forgot there was a dot to dot in the back as well. I have so many books by Marlo Mogensen.
Oh yeah.
Because he always piles them. I'm like, yeah, I'll get that one. He's like, do you want this one as well? I'm like, okay, how much? I can just have it. I just have this one. I just have this one. I'm like, okay, thank you, Marlo. Let me give you money, please. No, please let me give you money. Love when people are just so happy to just put their work out into the world, and this is like such a big deal, especially because of zine discourse and what a zine is, and how much money is involved before you can part with it.
Yeah.
And production value. So I love that Muller just constantly just puts stuff out. But at the same time, I want to reimburse artists. This was to me. Lesbian Larcher. By Basset Hound. And Tibetan Mastiff. Highly relatable content. This is the artist. Yeah, this was, I think, a Christmas present from a couple of years ago. I had a lot of Helen Graham's Halloween work. For some reason, I never seem to catch anything else, but because I'm always just hanging around like a dingus at Halloween, I always manage to get the Halloween scenes. I have a tiny little Big Facts by Caitlin Lede. It's a little itsy bitsy. I love the real teeny ones. I think this one's by Katie, who does a lot of art over at Taranaki Farm these days.
Oh yeah.
Really careful, try not to knock this up because it's lovely. It's very pretty. Cute.
That's so sweet.
So like delicate. I love when people make tiny little beautiful things because I do not have the physical dexterity for that. I have no idea where I got this one from. It's really crinkled up, which makes me think maybe I found it. Oh, it's Tim Malloy. Okay. I'm guessing I got this at Squish Face at some point. Ripped to a real one. It's just like.
Oh wow. I think I've only seen his as like perfect bounds.
Yeah. No, this is just like a single staple, really crinkled, which makes me think that I could have gotten it off the floor outside. Oh, hi. Hello. Hi, Grimmy.
Hello, Grimbus. Grim.
Oh, you can hear Auntie Alex. Sort of. Okay, bye.
Where are they? They're alive. They go on holiday.